Hello there everybody, Martin here from Affinity for Commander. Today we have a game involving three of my least favourite things in Magic: Control, Infect, and Goody Two-Shoes Space Marines. So without further ado, let's take a look at those opening hands. I am playing my Sidisi Brood Tyrant Zombie Typal deck, and keep an opening hand containing Satyr Wayfinder, Lord of the Accursed, Muldrifter, Opal Palace, a swamp and 2 forests.
I am playing my Atraxa Praetor's Voice Infect deck, keeping a starting hand of Venerated Rot Priest, Fellwar Stone, Scavenging Ooze, Painful Truths, Karmic Guide, Command Tower, and the Plains.
Atlantis is playing her Marneus Calgar token deck, and after mulliganing twice settles on a hand consisting of Serum Visions, Battle Angels of Tyr, Spark Double, Ash Barrens, Gargoyle Castle, and Polluted Delta.
And finally, BJ is playing his Errant Giada Flash deck. He keeps a starting hand made up of Enlightened Tutor, Cyclonic Rift, Zephyr Sentinel, Mirror Entity, Stasis Snare, Mikokoro, Center of the Sea, and Skybridge Towers.
I win the die roll and play a forest before passing to BJ.
BJ plays Skybridge Towers and passes.
Atlantis plays an island and casts Serum Visions. She draws a card, moves one of the top 2 cards of her library to the bottom, and ends her turn.
In my turn, I play Command Tower and cast Venerated Rot Priest. With nothing more to do, I pass to Martin.
I play an island and then cast Satyr Wayfinder. I reveal the top 4 cards of my library with the Satyr's ETB, putting a swamp into my hand in this way, and put the remaining cards into my graveyard before passing the turn.
BJ plays Mikokoro, Center of the Sea, and ends his turn.
Atlantis begins her turn by playing Polluted Delta, and immediately pays 1 life to sacrifice it. She searches her library for Watery Grave, and pays a further 2 life to have the land enter the battlefield untapped. Not yet finished, Atlantis taps out to cast Zulaport Cutthroat, and passes to Alex.
I play a Shiny Plains, and swiftly move to combat. Here I attack BJ with my Rot Priest, and not wishing to gain any poison counters this early in the game, he flashes in Zephyr Sentinel to block with. Both creatures are destroyed, upsetting me deeply, and I move to my second main phase. Here I cast Fellwar Stone, and pass the turn.
In my turn I play a swamp and then move to combat. Here I punish Alex for attacking BJ by hitting him with Satyr Wayfinder, and unable to block he takes 1 damage.
First Blood.
In my post-combat main phase I use all of my mana to cast Lord of the Accursed, and with no further plays I end my turn.
BJ plays an island, and passes to Atlantis.
I hate it when blue players do that. Atlantis starts her turn by playing a Plains and land cycles Ash Barrens. She searches her library for a Plains, puts it into her hand, and passes.
In my turn, I cast Painful Truths, losing 3 life and drawing 3 cards. Next, I play an island and end my turn.
I play a swamp and cast my commander, Sidisi Brood Tyrant. Not liking the idea of me creating a bunch of 3/3 zombies, BJ casts Counterspell, denying me my Naga Shaman, and I move to combat. Here I send both of my creatures at BJ, dealing him 3 damage, and pass the turn to him.
BJ draws, sighs at the lack of land in his hand, and passes without doing anything.
Karma for countering my commander. Atlantis plays a Plains and casts a fancy Battle Angels of Tyr. Pleased with her play, she ends her turn.
In my turn, I play Godless Shrine, paying 2 life to have the land enter the battlefield untapped. Next, I cast Llanowar Elves, closely followed by Scavenging Ooze, and pass to Martin.
I begin my turn by playing Opal Palace and tap out to cast Havengul Lich. Moving to combat, I once again attack BJ with Lord of the Accursed, making him choose between flashing in his commander to block with, or casting the draw spell I reckon he's holding up. Really needing more lands, BJ elects to take the 2 damage, and I pass the turn. BJ responds to this by casting Enlightened Tutor, searching his library for Sensei's Divining Top in this way. He puts the artifact on top of his library,
Get out.
and proceeds to his turn.
BJ draws his Divining Top and immediately casts it. With no further plays, he ends his turn.
In her turn, Atlantis plays Drowned Catacomb, and then casts Spark Double. With the creature on the stack, BJ casts Cyclonic Rift, bouncing Battle Angels of Tyr back to Atlantis' hand. The illusion then enters the battlefield, becoming a copy of its only legal target, Zulaport Cutthroat, causing Atlantis to feel the big sad. She puts a +1/+1 counter on the Cutthroat clone and moves to combat. Here Atlantis attacks BJ with her original Cutthroat, dealing him 1 damage, and passes to Alex.
I play a Plains and cast Skithiryx, the Blight Dragon.
You are the worst kind of person, you know that.
I do. Moving to combat, I pay a black mana to give Skithiryx haste and attack Martin with a Skeletal Dragon. Unable to block, he takes 4 infect damage, and I pass the turn.
I start my turn by playing a forest, and with Alex's word that he won't attack me again next turn, I recast my commander. This time Sidisi resolves without any issues, and I mill 3 cards of her ETB. I put 3 lands into my graveyard, making 0 zombies, and move to combat. Here I attack Alex with Havengul Lich and BJ with Lord of the Accursed, and neither player declares any blocks. Alex takes 5, BJ takes 2, and I end my turn.
BJ draws, and once again passes to Atlantis without doing anything.
Oh dear. Atlantis plays Gargoyle Castle, and Alex, BJ and I all chastise her for the way she has her lands.
I mean, look at that abomination. Richard Garfield will have a heart attack if he saw this.
Anyway, Atlantis free casts Battle Angels of Tyr and moves to combat. Here she once again attacks BJ with Zulaport Cutthroat, and BJ responds to this by flashing in his commander, Errant Giada. He blocks the attacking rogue in this way, destroying them, and both of Atlantis' Cutthroat's abilities trigger. BJ, Alex and I each lose 2 life, Atlantis gains 2 life, and BJ looks at the top card of his library of Errant Giada's ability. He lets out a cry of joy, leading the rest of us to believe that it may have been a land, and Atlantis passes the turn.
In my turn, I play Prairie Stream and move to combat. Here I attack BJ with Skithiryx, which he blocks with his commander.
A sensible move indeed.
With damage over, I proceed to my post-combat main phase, where I cast my commander, Atraxa, Praetor's Voice. I then move to my end step, where I proliferate Martin's poison counters, and as a gesture of friendship, I also add a +1/+1 counter to Atlantis' Spark Double before ending my turn.
I play a swamp and cast Muldrifter, drawing 2 cards.
You're not evoking it?
Not when Skithiryx is still around. Not yet finished, I cast Cryptbreaker and move to combat. Here I attack BJ with Sidisi in order to trigger her ability and mill 3 cards in the process. This time I mill a creature, creating me a 2/2 zombie token, and once again lacking blockers, BJ takes 3 damage. Unable to do anything else, I pass to BJ.
BJ plays Riptide Laboratory, and for the 6th time this game, passes without casting anything.
It's almost like he's playing a Flash Typal deck or something. Atlantis begins her turn by playing an island and casts her commander, Marneus Calgar. Alex responds to this by casting Mortify, destroying Battle Angels of Tyr, and Spark Double's ability is triggered. Alex, BJ and I each lose a life, Atlantis gains a life, and the Ultramarines Chapter Master then resolves.
For the Emperor!
Once again denied the ability to attack with her angel, Atlantis ends her turn, to which Alex responds by activating his Scavenging Ooze. He exiles a creature from my graveyard in this way, putting a +1/+1 counter on the ooze, and gaining a life before proceeding to his turn.
I start my turn by playing Windswept Heath and move to combat. I attack BJ with Skithiryx and Martin with Atraxa, and BJ flashes in Spectral Sail to block with. Martin chooses not to block, taking 4 damage, and I gain 4 life thanks to my commander's lifelink. In my second main phase, I cast Izuri, Stalker of Spheres, paying 3 additional mana to proliferate twice. I give Scavenging Ooze 2 +1/+1 counters, and Martin 2 poison counters in this way, and draw 2 cards thanks to Izuri's other ability. Happy with my turn, I move to my end step, where I proliferate a 3rd time with Atraxa. Scavenging Ooze gets another +1/+1 counter, Martin gains another poison counter, and I draw another card thanks to Izuri before passing to Martin. Martin responds by tapping 3 zombies to activate his Cryptbreaker's ability, losing a life and drawing a card. With no further interruptions, he moves to his turn.
I play a forest and then move to combat. Here I attack BJ with my commander and one of her zombies, and mill no creatures with her attack trigger.
Such a shame, really.
BJ responds to this by activating his Divining Top, rearranging the top 3 cards of his library. He then takes 6 damage, and I proceed to my second main phase, where I cast Spider Spawning. I create 2 1/2 spider tokens with reach, which, whilst not a lot, should at least stem the bleeding from Alex's flyers for a few turns.
That's what you think.
Still not finished, I cast Altar of Dementia, closely followed by Deathrite Shaman. With no open mana remaining, I pass the turn.
BJ draws, and ends his turn.
Riveting stuff as usual. In her turn, Atlantis casts Bastion of Remembrance, creating a 1/1 human soldier token when the enchantment enters the battlefield. She draws a card thanks to Marneus' ability and casts Skull Clamp, which she immediately equips to the soldier she just created. The soldier dies, Atlantis draws 2, and the rest of the table lose 2 life thanks to the combined effects of Spark Double and Bastion of Remembrance. Atlantis gains 2 life in the same way, and plays Rafine's Tower as her land for turn. Not quite done, Atlantis equips Marneus Calgar with her Skull Clamp and moves to combat. She attacks Alex with her now 4/4 double striking commander, and Alex declares no blocks, taking 8 damage.
'Tis but a flesh wound.
Moving to her post-combat main phase, Atlantis moves Skull Clamp over to her Spark Double, and with nothing more to do, passes to Alex. Alex responds to this by paying 1 life and sacrificing his fetch land. He searches his library for Endorth the Triome, puts it into play tapped, and then activates his Scavenging Ooze. Alex exiles a creature from BJ's graveyard, putting a +1/+1 counter on his ooze and gaining a life, and finally finished, moves to his untapped step.
I begin my turn by playing Flooded Strand and move to combat. Here I attack Atlantis with my Infecty Dragon, and Martin with my Phyrexianized Angel. Martin blocks my commander with Mole Drifter and his 2 spiders, and I choose to deal lethal damage to 2 of these creatures.
Why not all 3? Atraxa has Death Touch, you know.
Because shut up, that's why. Anyway, I gain 4 life thanks to my commander's lifelink, and Atlantis takes 4 Infect damage. Next I move to my second main phase where I cast Karmic Guide. I use the Spirit's ability to return the Venerated Rock Priest in my graveyard to the battlefield, and with no further actions, pass the turn. Martin once again responds to this by tapping 3 zombies and losing a life to draw a card. Lacking the zombies to do this again, he moves to his turn.
I start my turn by moving straight to combat, and sensing that I may not survive another turn cycle, I attack Alex with Sidisi, my zombie token, Havengull Lich, and Crit Breaker.
Rude.
Before blockers are declared, I use Lord of the Accursed ability to give all of my zombies menace, and then resolve Sidisi's attack trigger. I mill a creature, which makes me a zombie, and Alex chooses his blockers. Sensing a trap, he blocks Sidisi with Scavenging Ooze and Karmic Guide, and Havengull Lich with Llanowar Elves and Azori. Before damage occurs, I sacrifice Sidisi to Altar of Dementia, milling 3 cards as a result. Alex then taps Llanowar Elves to produce a green mana, and taps 3 lands to activate his Ooze's ability 4 times. He exiles 4 creatures from my graveyard, gains 4 life, and puts 4 +1/+1 counters on the aforementioned Ooze before combat damage finally occurs.
By that took a while.
My Lich destroys both of the creatures blocking it, Alex takes 5 damage, and I move to my second main phase. Here I cast Extract from Darkness, and Alex responds by sacrificing his Flooded Strand. He pays 1 life to put Khemi Vista onto the battlefield from his library, and exiles Lancer's Battle Angels of Tyr from her graveyard. Alex gains a life, puts a +1/+1 counter on Scavenging Ooze, and Extract from Darkness then resolves. I put the freshly milled Torrential Gearhulk from BJ's graveyard into play, and using the Construct's ability, I mistakenly recast the Extract from Darkness in my graveyard, despite it being a sorcery and not an instant.
I'm not angry, just disappointed.
Everyone mills 2 more cards, and this time I put the Deadeye Navigator in my own graveyard into play, soul bonding it with Torrential Gearhulk, and use my Deathrite Shaman to exile a land from Alex's graveyard. I produce a blue mana in this way, which I then use alongside my final untapped land to flicker my Gearhulk, this time casting Spider Spawning in my graveyard.
Hey man, is that another sorcery?
Nope, don't know what you're talking about. I make 2 more spider tokens when the definitely legal to cast spell resolves, and with nothing more to do, end my turn. But wait, there's more. BJ responds to this by activating his top, rearranging the top 3 cards of his library. He then casts Thirst for Discovery, drawing 3 cards, discarding 2 non-land cards, and proceeds to his turn.
BJ plays a Plains, resulting in the rest of us cheering his success, and casts Heliod the Radiant Dawn. He returns the dress down in his graveyard to his hand, and 1 mana short of being able to cast it, passes to Atlantis.
In her turn, Atlantis plays a Plains and casts Fell the Mighty. She chooses for all creatures of power greater than Marneus to be destroyed, and I sacrifice Torrential Gearhulk, Deadeye Navigator, and Havengull Lich to my altar to mill 14 cards. Fell the Mighty then resolves of all remaining 4 or higher powered creatures being destroyed, and Atlantis draws 2 cards when her Spark Double dies. Atlantis gains 2 life, BJ, Alex and I each lose 2 life, and Atlantis uses her remaining mana to cast Anointed Procession.
Now that worries me.
Pleased of her turn, Atlantis passes.
I cast Revelark for its evoke cost, immediately sacrificing the elemental and triggering its ability. I return the Karmic Guard and Scavenging Ooze in my graveyard to the battlefield, and use Karmic Guard's ability to put Skithiryx the Blight Dragon back into play as well.
Ugh.
Moving to combat, I give my Dragon haste and send him at BJ. Lacking any blockers, he takes 4 infect damage, and I end my turn.
I begin my turn by flashing back the Gnaw to the Bone in my graveyard, gaining 20 life in this way. Next I play Simic Guildgate as my land for turn, and move to combat. Here I attack Alex with all 4 of my zombies, to which he responds by using Scavenging Ooze to exile the filth that was in my graveyard.
And I was willing to leave it alone if he'd attacked someone other than me.
Alex gains a life, puts a +1/+1 counter on his ooze, and not yet finished exiles yet another creature from my grave. He gains another life, puts another counter on his scoos, and then moves to blocks. Here Alex blocks Lord of the Accursed with his massive ooze, and Crypt Breaker with his Karmic Guide. Both of my blocked creatures are destroyed, and Alex's Angel survives the exchange of blows given that she has protection from black. Alex then takes 6 damage, and I proceed to my second main phase. Here I cast Loam Shaman, forcing Alex to shuffle the Revelark in his graveyard into his library so that they can't be reanimated.
So mean.
Unable to do anything else to hinder Alex, I pass to BJ, who uses his remaining mana to activate his top. He rearranges the top 3 cards of his library, then moves to his turn.
BJ plays an island, and in a shocking turn of events, casts a spell in his own turn.
Didn't see that one coming.
He casts Mirror Entity, and with 3 mana open, passes the turn.
Atlantis starts her turn by casting Birth of the Imperium, creating 6 2/2 Astartes warrior tokens thanks to Anointed Procession.
Synergy.
She draws a card thanks to Marneus Kalgar's ability, plays an island, and re-equips her Skull Clamp to her commander. Given that Karmic Guide has pro-black, Atlantis decides it's not worth it to attack Alex, and instead ends her turn.
I choose not to pay for Karmic Guide's Echo cost, sacrificing it. And when I move to my draw step, Martin exiles the Angel with his Deathrite Shaman.
I really don't want you bringing it back again.
He gains 2 life in this way, and I cast Skyshroud Claim, putting 2 forests onto the battlefield from my library. Next, I recast Atraxa, and moving to combat, I attack BJ with Skithiryx. BJ gains 4 poison counters, and I proceed to my end step. Here, I proliferate everyone's poison counters, and with 2 of my opponents on the brink of defeat, I pass to Martin.
I begin my turn by casting Golgari Raider, who enters the battlefield with 10 +1/+1 counters.
Not bad for 4 mana.
Moving to combat, I attack Alex with my Hasty Elf, which he decides to block with his commander. Both creatures are destroyed, Alex gains 4 life, and I move to my post-combat main phase. Here I cast a Ramen-Up Excavator and play the Temple of Deceit in my graveyard as my land for turn. I scry 1, keeping the top card of my library where it is, and pass. BJ responds to this by casting Otherworldly Gaze and looks at the top 3 cards of his library. He puts one of these into his graveyard, the other 2 back on top of his library, and then activates Sense's Divining Top. He once again looks at the top 3 cards of his library, chooses to leave them in the same order, and proceeds to his turn.
In his turn, BJ plays Skycloud Expanse, and passes.
Damn BJ, back at it again with the land and pass.
Spotting that BJ and Martin are unable to target any of my creatures without immediately gaining a 10th poison counter from Venerated Rot Priest, Atlantis casts Power Word Kill on the aforementioned Phyrexian. I choose to give Atlantis a poison counter with the priest's ability, and the creature is destroyed. Pleased with her play, Atlantis moves to her turn.
Atlantis puts a second law counter on her Saga, forcing the rest of us to sacrifice a creature. BJ responds to this by returning Mirror Entity to his hand of Riptide Laboratory, Alex sacrifices Skitherix, and I sacrifice Satia Wayfinder. Next, Atlantis casts Vanguard Suppressor, paying its squad cost 3 times. She makes 6 Vanguard Suppressor tokens, draws a card of her commander, and moves to combat. Atlantis sends all 6 of her Astartes warriors and their chapter master at Alex, who responds by targeting one of the creatures in Atlantis' graveyard with Scavenging Ooze's ability. I perform my best Phoenix Wright impression,
Objection!
and exile a targeted creature with my Deathrite Shaman's ability, gaining 2 life, but more importantly removing the target of Alex's ability.
I am receiving so much undeserved hate at this moment.
Deeply upset by my actions, Alex blocks Marneus with his ooze, resulting in both creatures' deaths. Alex then takes 12 damage, and Atlantis draws 2 cards from her Skull Clamp. Atlantis gains a life from Bastion of Remembrance, BJ, Alex and I each lose a life, and Atlantis ends her turn.
I start my turn by casting Contagion Clasp, putting a -1/-1 counter on one of Martin's zombies. Next I activate the Clasp's ability, proliferating everybody's poison counters, and BJ responds by flashing in Dress Down. He draws a card, and then uses his Top's ability to draw once more, desperately digging for an answer. Unfortunately for him, he fails to find one, and I knock both BJ and Martin out of the game in one fell swoop. However, it's not all sunshine, roses and poison for me, as I confess to the tale that I have no way to take out Atlantis or her army of Space Marines, and concede the game to her.
Well, that is it for another game. I hope that you enjoyed watching Alex get what he deserves for playing a dirty Infect deck. I'd like to give a huge thank you to each and every one of our incredible patrons, without whom we'd be unable to continue making videos such as this. Also, be sure to check out the affiliate links in our video description. It won't cost you anything extra to make your purchases through these, but it really helps out the channel. And finally, don't forget that you can help to support us in 4 quick and easy ways: liking this video, subscribing, hitting that bell icon, and leaving us a comment. I read every one. That's it for now though, we'll see you next time. Stay awesome!